for CGM, but we actually have to have insurance.
Same regional office in New York, Louisiana, South Carolina.
We don't offer it yet, but we're in the final stages of implementing like a pilot project with them.
Okay.
And then it's hoped that maybe next year we're gonna start offering them to our patients.
Okay, and I'm sorry.
Thank you. That helps answer the question. I like to get buy-in.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day 3 of our Best Practices Conference. In our first session of clinical practices, we have Casey Arnold presenting on continuous glucose monitoring for patients. And let's welcome Ms. Arnold.
Thank y'all. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I love talking about technology, and I think you all are got the buy-in as well. So it's really good for me to know that some devices are available for the communities. I am an adult and acute care and board certified advanced diabetes management nurse practitioner. I've been helping persons with diabetes for about 26 years. I started as a captain at Keesler Air Force Base. I was a nurse educator, became the certified diabetes educator, and then decided to get my nurse practitioner. And military said, "Thank you for your service. Have a nice day." And I went out and worked in the community and as a nurse practitioner. So I love helping persons with diabetes. My niche, I own my practice. I owned my practice as a nurse practitioner in Mississippi for the last 16 years. I started after Hurricane Katrina, didn't know any better, not the best way to start a clinic, but it worked for me. What a blessing. I grew slowly. I started with me and one nurse, and now we're 3 nurse practitioners focused solely on helping persons with diabetes. And I have a total of 11 staff. And I also have 2 pet therapy dogs that work with our children. And it's turned out that our adults really like my program for that too. So very unique because I own the business. If I can do something that can make a difference in somebody's life, I do it. So we're going to talk today about implementing CGM, continuous glucose monitoring. I have some conflicts. I speak for Novo Nordisk. I speak for Lilly. I speak for Abbott. I speak for Dexcom. So I need to be upfront about that. We're going to talk about all the available FDA-approved technologies. And some you may have not seen yet. Some may not be available at all. But in order to give fair balance, I want to make sure I touch on each of the technologies. So our objectives today are to identify continuous glucose monitoring that's available. We're going to talk about steps about offering CGM to your patients and review ways to enhance care and bill for use of CGM. And my understanding is that you don't really have to bill for every little visit. Is that correct? Like I'm a privately owned practice. I have to bill for everything I do. And you can bill for CGM. I don't think that applies to your scenarios. Am I right? Our due billing. Okay, so good. I'll make sure I go into that because that's important for us. It's when I look at the data and I document it, that is an extra code, and I'll go over that. So, what is continuous glucose monitoring? It is a device that measures blood glucose, and most of the devices measure it through interstitial glucose, meaning within the cells. We have capillary blood glucose or pricking your finger, and we have interstitial, okay? There is 2 mechanisms of this. There is a professional version and there is a personal version. For this group, I chose not to talk about the professional. And to be honest, as a privately owned clinic, I don't do professional. If somebody wants a device, we go ahead and get it. And I don't want to bill extra. Oh yeah, now you did this. Now we can get your personal. I just offer the personal. So in a privately owned clinic, we're not doing any professional. And there are many clinics out there that are endocrine. Oh yes, we're doing professional. And I choose not to. For me, a small amount of time on a device doesn't really make the patients change. And so that's why we're going to focus on just the personal. Gotta hit both things. All right. So first one we're going to talk about today is the Libre 14-day and the Libre 2. Now that everybody's seated and ready for this, through this talk, I need 3 volunteers. And the volunteer can't have a sensor on them already, but would want to try a sensor today and be willing to either show their arm to the group or a little bit of their belly to the group. So who wants to volunteer to wear a sensor today? Anybody? Okay, I got 1. I need 2 more. 2, okay. Anybody else? 3, okay, I got my 3 volunteers. 1, 2, 3. All right, can you please download the app for the Libre 2? Okay, in the far corner, can you please download the app for Libre 3? And can you please download the app for Dexcom G6? That's just going to save some time. And as a nurse practitioner in your own clinic, we do the training. If we do it right there for the patients. I have a nurse. We're 3 nurse practitioners. I have 1 nurse. She does a lot of my insulin pump trainings and sensor trainings, but some of these are so easy. We just do it and put it on the patient. They go out the door. It's amazing. So we're going to talk first about the Libre 14-day and the Libre 2. So Libre is made by Abbott. It came out originally with the Libre 10-day, and then they came out with the 14-day. And now the current one is the Libre 2. The difference between the 14 and the 2 is the 2 has alarms. So that's really nice for patients who are having severe lows is there a question? No? Okay. Oh, so sorry. You have a Libre 2? Yeah, I saw you earlier. I'm like, oh, she's already got one on. She can't raise her hand. I noticed that. So it is a painless scan, provides real-time glucose readings for insulin dosing. These devices are measured in what we call MARD, and this is a comparative to a scientific way of looking at glucose reading called YSI. And some of them have some interference, some of those have been stopped, and it's clinically proven to reduce hypoglycemia versus blood glucose testing. And I treat a ton of patients who are on MDI, which is multiple daily injections. And so we are asking these patients to prick their finger a minimum of 4 times a day. So when I can say, hey, we can put a glucose sensor on it, you can do your insulin dosing, would you care to not have to prick your finger anymore? I rarely get a no on that question. So that's the biggest bonus, is the devices are FDA approved, that you do not have to prick your finger as well as look at the reading, but you can still test your sugar if it's not right, if you think something's off. Okay, so if you feel low and the device isn't reading that, you could still prick your finger if you want to. And there are some times that it recommends that. So the Libre 14-day and the Libre 2 are what we call intermittent scan. So the 14-day, and I have the Libre 2 reader. The Libre 14 is just a black screen. That's the black round here. This device goes to a scanner, and the patient is FDA approved for the back of their arm, and they literally turn on the reader and tap, and that gives them their blood sugar number. It's amazing technology. And as we are advancing on the system, I'll show you Abbott's next one in just a second. That's even more cool. So this device is also available for phone. So you can use, at this point, it's Android and iPhone. Sometimes it has to be a compatibility issue with the Android because there are many types of Androids out there, but it's typically an iPhone 7 or greater, most reasonable Androids, I would say it that way. And there is a compatibility list available on the website. So that's a choice for the patient. So do you sometimes have Medicare eligible patients as well? Yeah, have both. So they're dual eligible for both systems. Good. I'll make sure I go through the Medicare guidelines on this when we get through the devices. So patients can use a reader or they can use their cell phone. Very interesting when they don't have to carry another little extra box. And who doesn't leave home without their cell phone? The reader can be forgotten pretty easily. So that is the Abbott. It reads Libre. It reads it to a phone, and we'll do our demos. I think we'll do them as we go here. I think that makes it a little more interactive. So the Libre system is easy for patients to use. It's an easy to start. It's Libre Abbott is FDA approved for the back of the arm. It's approved for age 4 and up. And the sensor goes to the back of the arm. They scan it to activate it. And then whenever, after a 1 hour warm up, whenever they want to look at their blood sugar, they tap it with the device. And they can wear the sensor up to 14 days. So typically you prescribe 2 of the devices per month with refills. And if it's a 90-day supply, you would do 60. When it's Medicare eligible at this time, they have to go through a durable medical equipment company, a DME supplier, and the rules are changing, which is good. Due to COVID, there's been some, I'd say, lightening of the requirements. I used to have to send every logbook for the last 90 days. I used to have to prove that they were on 4 shots a day. And now many of the companies, the Medicare guidelines are changing as long as a patient is on insulin. The hard part for me is when someone for Medicare is not on insulin at this time, it's not a covered product. But that's the rules, that's what they are. And I had a patient who called me yesterday and he said, I want that sensor. And I called him back. I said, I'm sorry, Medicare is your primary insurance. It would not be covered. I could still send it to a local pharmacy. You could pay for it out of pocket, but to get coverage, you'd have to be on insulin. He goes, well, I'm on insulin. I take that once a week shot, Trulicity. And I said, no, you're not on insulin. Good try though, good try. And there is a once a week insulin, we hope coming out in shortly, but it's not available today. So I knew he was not on a once a week insulin. So that is the, got lots of things to hold on to here. Hold on. That's how you put it on. And so who is my Libre 2 volunteer? Come right up here and show me your arm. And I'm going to set this down. So I asked him to download the app because when we're using this device, I didn't bring readers. We get free samples, but none of the devices are coming with the technology to for the readers. So the ones that we get, the samples in our office, are just the device. And you don't have to scan it right this second. Are you scared?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Do you need a chair?
No.
Okay. All right, here we go. Very, very simple. This is the Libre 2. The patient peels his teeth off. This comes off with a little twisty piece. This is the Libre 2. You set it down here. That's it. Now, we live in hot areas, most of us, and a lot of times I will put skin tag or some kind of a little extra adhesive so I'm okay. So you clean the area, let that dry for a second. I'm just using plain alcohol for this because, and then there's dressings and stuff you can apply as well. Sun patch, lots of skin coverings. These are waterproof. And then
That's my already.
I didn't know it was fun. That's it. Now you're going to scan it.
He'll scan the device, and then in 1 hour, he'll be able to use the readings. Get started now. next. Okay, next. You're going to have to go through those screens. So anybody else who's volunteering, make sure you go through the sign up phase as well, because I don't want to take time with that. There's a couple of next, you got to set up an account. So he's going to do that. And you're going to hear a little ding, and that means the sensor is started, it's activated. And in 1 hour, he can see his blood sugars. Pretty cool, huh? You know, it's pretty cool. Questions? No, you want the actual app, Dexcom G6. You see that? No, you don't want clarity. It's Dexcom G6. What type of phone do you have? Okay, it should just say Dexcom G6. Is that not true? Okay. In the back row there, can you download the Dexcom G6 app on your phone? I'm sorry, we're going to have to shift volunteers. It happens sometimes. If you can download the Dexcom G6 app, let me know. Okay. So just to show you on the Freestyle Libre 2, the components are that simple. You can use your phone or your reader. It's so easy to put on. Literally, I go to my closet, I grab one, patient's interested on it. We put it on as long as I have a phone and that works with it, and they go out the door. If they don't have a phone, we order the reader. Medicare requires that you order a reader anyway, and the patient can use either their phone or the reader. So, but in this scenario, I just have to have a phone that works. It's easy to prescribe. I mentioned you just say two devices, refills, how many refills you want. It's easy to set up. There's alarms on the Libre 2, which is alarms for low, can alarm for high, can alarm when you leave the device, it's not seeing it. You can shut those off too. So some patients don't like the alarms, but if your life is dependent on a severe low blood sugar, it's really important. So that is the Libre 2. Now, who is my Libre 3 volunteer? This is really cool. So Abbott you've got the app downloaded and it says Libre 3. And did you set up an account? Okay, good. Again, that Dave who's for the back of the arm, Libre 3. It has just come out. And it is what they did what they called a soft launch. And the greatest thing that Abbott did was put this available at the pharmacies as well as the durable medical equipment. For Libre 3, they started it only in the DME companies. And the beauty of this is there's no little station. This is it. It's all ready to go. This is the only thing you have for the Libre 3. And you literally now look at the size of that one. It's a penny versus a quarter. FDA approved for 14 days. And then as soon as you can get that activated, you can be showing everybody next. Oh, you're good. Keep going. Today, it's just DME right now. Yeah. Next. Oh, there is a vitamin C warning on the Libre 2 and 3. You're not supposed to take over more than 500 milligrams of vitamin C. Next. Allow. Next. Oh, go ahead. Yes. Allow. Next. Scan sensor. All right. So now she's ready to scan. She's going to take her phone, just tap it by her arm. You should get a little, yeah, there it goes. So she got a check mark. She felt a little vibration in her phone, and now in 1 hour, she'll be able to see her blood glucose readings. Great question. Some do. Some use other family member, a loved one, a partner to do that. I have Libre 3. I have my data. I put a Libre 3 on earlier, and this does not require scanning. So this is real time now. So Abbott's really come a long way. And so we've been able to get these for the patients. I'm a little disappointed with the way Abbott released this because they've been so great at the pharmacies, but sometimes new technology, you just got to be a little more patient, which I'm not good about that part. So, but that's what the data looks like. FDA approved for 14 days. And it's, the readings are every minute, every day up to 14 days. It's helping reduce time in hypoglycemia. Today, the Libre 3 is the world's smallest, thinnest, and most discreet sensor. And my 2 volunteers, would you say that was pretty painless to put on? Yeah, yeah. And please, you can keep those on for the 14 days and it's really fun. They do fall off. Sometimes people walk through a door jam, sometimes in taking off your clothes, sometimes when someone grabs you, like there's a lot of things that can happen. That's why I like to use a little skin tack or something that'll give it a little more stickiness. If they fall off or they don't work, Abbott will replace it. So they contact the company and they say, look, this one didn't work, or this one fell off early, and they'll typically replace that. So for our Medicare patients, they would get it through a supplier, but if it comes off, they would call the company to get it replaced, and commercial would call the company also. So just very, very good options in what we have. Pretty cool on the Libre 3 and the Libre 2. Yeah. And the coolest thing is I've got the Libre 3. I put it on my arm. And because you don't have to scan it, the Libre 2 will also work through your clothes. So you can scan that even through clothes. So, but this is reading everything right now. So pretty amazing where we're going with this technology. They're describing the size of the Libre 3 as a penny. And I would say it's about a quarter for the Libre 2. Yes, sir. You cannot. You can't. Yeah, it doesn't stay on. Once it comes off, it's done. Great question though. Yes, ma'am. Well, there's a bicep back there that you could like feel it. Seriously. I mean, I really wanted to make this design as like a show and tell and really feel it's. Yeah, right. Yeah, I recommend patches all the time because they do fall off. And in our temperature, especially in Mississippi, my gosh, it gets so hot and people are working. So you got to offer ways to help it stay on. Yes, sir. Some will send patches, some will not. It depends on the company. You just got to talk to your suppliers. I've got one called Total Medical, and they will actually send extra strips for patients. They've got some unique things that are working for the Medicare patients. So let's talk about the Dexcom G6. FDA approved today. It's a simple auto applicator. It's a one-touch application. It easily inserts. Now, typically we say to put that on your abdomen. Any of these devices, it is FDA approved for a certain area, but it is fat tissue. And if you got fat tissue here and you have fat tissue here, I always teach the correct way and the correct placement. But if it doesn't, if it's not right, then we sometimes try other places. I'll just be honest. It's not FDA approved, but it's good. Now for the Dexcom system, so let's clear all this stuff out. You need at least 2 parts. You need a transmitter and you need a sensor. And then you need a receiver if you're not using a smartphone. So the Dexcom sensor itself is the little plastic clear piece, and the transmitter is the gray piece. The transmitter lasts for 90 days. The sensor lasts for 10 days. So when they pull this off and they throw it in the trash and they forget that they had their sensor attached to it, that can be an issue. So I really counsel my patients on making sure that they pull this little gray piece out. That is the transmitter. So that's the part that lasts for 90 days. And Dexcom is actually very good. They give us these little, what we call Hello Dexcom kits. It has a sensor and a transmitter in it. And the device at least gives a patient a chance to try it if they have a compatible phone. And again, Dexcom has a list of compatible phones that are available. So let's see. So we are the display device, depending on which they want to do. This is real time. So I've kind of mentioned the parts. I gotta remember to change this. I got too many buttons here. Catch us up here. Apologize. So you have your auto applicator, and that comes in a box like this. And then you have your sensor, and then you have your transmitter, and then you have display device. And the display device can be either your phone or the receiver. And again, with Medicare, they're requiring that they get a receiver as well. So to do the Dexcom device, it's pretty straightforward. It has accuracy and outcomes available. It's indicated for age 2 and up. And as a nurse practitioner, we treat age 3 and up for diabetes. 2 of my other nurse practitioners are family nurse practitioners. So that has helped us a lot to have help children in the community. It can be tough because the little ones, there's peds endos are like Mobile or New Orleans or Jackson. It's a lot of travel for the families. So we still, we treat children and up. I am an adult nurse practitioner, so I can only treat teenage and up, but my other 2 can treat the children. So that's why I started my little pet therapy program with my dogs. And now my adults love it more than my kids do. So we're talking about real-time continuous glucose monitoring. In both of these systems, the Abbott and the Dexcom, there are mechanisms to be able to see the data by the professional or to share the data with family members. And that is huge. So if a patient calls me and says, I'm having trouble, I'm having lows, I'm having highs, whatever the situation is, we can see which device they're on, and my staff will pull the data in, and then I can call the patient and say, yes, I see what's happening. I can see that. So for the Dexcom, that app is called Clarity. For the Libre, it's called Libre View. And remote monitoring is how this occurs through these different applications that are free software from the companies. And so we actually, I ask patients to call us if they're having an issue. We don't go in and look at their data unbeknownst to them. It's when they call us, we will initiate. That's how we've set our system up. And it also, the Dexcom G6 will let the patient know that they have an urgent low soon. So that's really great too. So accuracy and outcomes, the MARD for the Dexcom is 9, indicated for 2, real-time continuous glucose monitoring. Dexcom Clarity is the app. The remote monitoring, they can share their data with up to 10 people. So a child at school, a loved one, I mean, it's amazing what can happen. And then urgent low soon alert, which is nice. If it's going to get below 55, they would be noted. So before let's do the Dexcom one now. Who's my Dexcom? Were you able to download it? I do apologize about the app issue. Reviews software. Yes, yeah, that you can look at it and we'll go over what the data looks like. So you want to show a little bit of your belly, you don't have to show much. You literally peel this off. You break his arm and peel. And then that's it, it's done. How'd that feel? Okay, so you covered I'm so sorry. All right, so we've got that on. And then you're gonna have to link this transmitter and this sensor. So I need to give you this number.
It's a little more involved with the Dexcom, where you just pop it on and it reads. The Dexcom, you have to use this sensor number and then the transmit. And so I'm gonna give you the number. You're gonna use this number.
Okay.
And then this little piece simply pops on here. Got snap it. There, it's in. And then these are the two numbers. This is the sensor number.
Okay.
And this is you're gonna scan that number. She's got work to do. All right, so that's the Dexcom. Now, until the Libre 3 came out, they were always like the only real-time sensor in terms of continuously reading, and the other one was intermittent scan. But I mean, we're talking, everything's catching up. Can you hear me?
Finally, this is, I love this. This is what I wanted to have happen. Thank you so much. Who's got the question? Yeah. It doesn't happen all the time because we really educate patients, but it does happen. Most of the time it happens like an emergency event, like somebody has a problem, they're in a car wreck, they pull things off, they throw it away, that kind of stuff. So I'm real about what happens to my patients. You know, the other day I had a young man, he worked for UPS and he got off work at Gaucher. He lives in Biloxi, it's 15 minutes away. He ended up 30 minutes down the road in Long Beach with a severe low and driving, and somehow called for help and the police came and found him. So you just never know. So that kid, you know, went to the ER, got treated. That's reality of sometimes what we do. This is not one you probably know a lot about. This is the Eversense, this next one. So this is an implantable glucose sensor, and you may not want this for your constituents, your tribe. So, but let me show it to you. And now it says 90-day sensor. It just was FDA approved for 6 months. It is the size of a dime. The length of it is small. It does require a small sterile incision, and you use a tool and you put the sensor underneath the skin on the back of the arm. I've done this. I am certified to put these in. We were going with the 90-day sensor for quite some time. And then to be honest, when COVID hit and we had trouble with, you know, making things elective versus had to do it, this fell by the wayside. For 2 years. There was no traction on new starts because it was an elective procedure. So COVID hurt this sensor really roughly. The transmitter, once under the skin, the sensor goes under the skin. The transmitter goes on top of the device with a double stick tape. So you can take it off, put it on, take it off, put it on. It's very, gives a lot of flexibility. It just came out with the 6-month approval, which I'm glad about, because on the patients that I did have this, every time I saw them, 90 days, I was having to put in a sensor and pull out a sensor. So now it's 6 months. In Europe, it's I think they're getting close to a year device. So really exciting technology. There isn't the same issue of it falling off. So if the transmitter comes off, you just take another piece of tape and put it back on. Yes. Scarring is pretty minimal. It's like a very small 5 centimeter surgical sterile technique. And I'll be honest, I'd done nothing surgical sterile technique as a nurse practitioner doing diabetes, and I learned. And so we have the sterile kits, the lidocaine, everything in my office. And we're expecting to pick this up and do more now that COVID's over, and have the opportunities to do this with patients again. Commercially, there are some insurances that pay for this now. Yes. Relatively low. It is a surgical incision, so you're using sterile technique. So it's relatively low. When it first came out, there were some technical issues. Early on, I had 1 or 2 that failed, so that the company sent replacements, but that meant another surgical incision, pull it out, put it on the other side. There was only a couple that I had. I'm an early adopter. I believe I was the first nurse practitioner in the nation outside of research to do this. And so I've maintained my certification for that, because even though we had COVID, if this is a technology that the patient wants, I want to do it for them. So I just like to give people options, and if we can get coverage, give them that option. It only reads to a phone. There is no reader for this. At this time, even the 6-month one does require 2 glucose readings, 2 finger sticks to work. That's a unfortunate part, I think, but that's how it stands today. Libre and Dexcom require no finger sticks to work, but they can still check their blood glucose by finger stick if they choose to, if they're not sure their system's working correctly. So this system requires 2 calibrations per day as it stands today. It takes time to get the FDA approved at these things without, it's always safety. So as it stands today, it does require 2 finger sticks. So per day. Yeah, as it stands today. Yep, fire away. That's what this is about. So with any of these devices, anybody can be allergic to whatever adhesive the device is. It's rare, and all the companies have suggested mechanisms for working through the adhesive issue. This one is a silicone-based dressing. It's like nothing I've ever used before, and it's really nice because I could literally stick that patch on your arm, and even if you had like a hairy arm, it pulls right off. It doesn't, it's like really interesting dressing. They did a lot in the science of the technology. So, but like anything else, if someone has a adhesive allergy, you'd have to use caution with that. And sometimes people get a red mark, and maybe it happens once or twice and then it goes away, you know, but it is an issue. Yes.
We're not using it yet, but can you speak to how
Any sensor, the first 24 hours is, I would call it questionable. So it's working, but the best data is after 24 hours, no matter what sensor you're using at this time. It just takes a little while for that interstitial fluid to read well. So I always tell patients use caution on the first day. So they should always have a glucometer handy, because if the device falls off or they're not sure their blood sugar readings, and they don't have to test that first day. If it's working well, they don't have to. But if it's giving them erroneous, I always say just give it a grain of salt. And there's a great animation with the Libre data that when they prick the finger and they look at the sensor, it is rare that the numbers are going to be exact. This is capillary blood glucose. This is interstitial glucose. And we call it the choo-choo train. So when the sugars are going up, rising quickly, eating, the finger stick's going to be up first and then the interstitial. When the sugars are going down, it could be the opposite. When they're not eating, they're not exercising, they're not doing anything, they can be very similar. But that is part of the training with any of these devices, that your finger stick is not going to be exact as your sensor, because otherwise you get that call. It's 20 points off. I go, yes, isn't that great? It's not going to be exact. Thank you. Thank you, Yvette. We appreciate that. I love having the interaction. This is what this is about. All right. Any of those type of issues, her question is someone's reading low for no reason. I have them call the company. Is there a technical issue or there's something going on? And there are some times when patients like sleep on their arm and there's a lot of pressure. that could be it. That could be location. So a lot of pressure on the devices will push tissue fluid away. So if I have that issue, I try to put it in a different area where they would not typically be laying on. So I would probably move his to the front of the arm in terms of what the positioning is, or even do an off-label place like the abdomen if they're not going to do that. But the tissue, that is an issue. This is another one that you're probably not familiar with. This is called the Guardian Connect. This is Medtronic's product. They have a sensor and pump combination, the 670G, the 770G, and they took their Guardian and made it just a freestanding sensor. It's not a huge uptick, I'll be honest, but to be fair and to show all the devices that are freestanding for personal use, the Guardian Connect. It has an app. It is the exact Guardian sensor. It displays the trends. It has some Sugar IQ software in it. So that's kind of their little selling point on it. It is FDA approved for 7 days. So it's kind of the shortest of the sensors. Somebody's got a low reading. Oh, no, that's your ready. Is it already said it's ready? Wow. A Libre 3? No, that's a 2. Okay. All right. Wow. So the Guardian Connect is it's a smart CGM. It's made for mobile. Just to be fair, that the sensor, and there's a sensor 3 which connects to the pump. There's just a Guardian Connect. So you just got to know that that is available too. We do. I'll be honest. I don't have any patient using this sensor. The Libre and the Dexcom by far are, and it does require finger stick. Believe it's 2 a day as well. So this is the data that you can see. This is the wow. So it's nice because these companies have come together and they're trying to have like one way of showing the data, which is nice. And the softwares are going to give you what we call time in range. And for diabetes, that's becoming a really important number. So when a patient comes to our office, we will download their data at the front desk. If it's cloud-based, we can just pull it in. If we need to hook up to a reader, we just do it at the front desk, whether it's a pump, a meter, a sensor, it all gets done at the front desk. They then PDF that into the chart, their electronic health record. And then the provider takes a look at that data with the patient. So I have kind of a unique model. I believe that the visit should happen as a joint working together. So the patient comes into the exam room, I treat them, I do my physical exam, I check their feet, any questions, anything else that I need to look at. And then we walk into my office and we sit across just like this, across my desk. And I turn my screen towards them and we look at their glucose data. We look at whatever devices they have so they can see what we're looking at. And it's amazing when you can say, hey, this is the pattern that you have. And then you can look at the day to day. And you can pick out all kinds of things when you see some spikes or some reason. But this is what I would chart. So say I have this view. I would say I have reviewed, we'll call this a Libre data for the last, I did the last 30 days. Patient's time in range is 73%. Their time above range is 25%, and their below range is 2%. They're at a low risk for hypoglycemia. They're utilizing their device 97% of the time, which is excellent. Sometimes it falls off or you take a day off, that's fine too. And then from their treatment algorithm, I would say, I will make these changes, blah, blah, blah. From that, you can bill a 95251. So that is a CPT code that you've looked at least 72 hours worth of data. And that code is a billable code. And we do that on top of our E&M code, like our 99213 or 99214. And that is how we bill that out. So that's a 95251. Very good mechanism for looking at the data and billing for what you do. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So it's either or. So if you do professional, it's a 95251. If you do a personal, it's a 95251 as well. So it's either or. There is a difference in the code for using Pro. I always forget, I get them mixed up, so I'm pulling it up. So there's a 95249 and there's a 95250. And let me pull those up. Yes. And let's see. The 95250 is professional code that you've put the device on. You've got at least 72 hours of data and you've downloaded it. And then the 95249 is you've put a personal CGM and you've trained the patient on the device. So, but you also on both of those, you have to have downloaded data. So let me go through the numbers. 95251 is the interpretation of the data, pro or professional. 95249 is the personal CGM, and the 95250 is the professional one that you would bill if you have a professional system in your office.
You have to put like the in the chart, or as long as you say, you just said earlier about.
Yes, it is in the chart. Yeah, that's how we do it. Does it have to be in the chart? I would say yes. You have to have the documentation evidence that you've done the download. Yeah, and well, we do both. It's in the PDF, it's in the patient's documents, and I've addressed it in the note. And there's great, let me go back here. A lot of these, you can copy this and at least take the summary and pop it into the chart as well. So we do that a lot too. So I'm not typing every one of these little numbers. Another number to consider is this GMI. That's a glucose management indicator. So that is, it looks like an A1C, but it's not. It's only these 30 days that we looked at. So, but it does give you some indication about what the patient's A1C is going to be next. So in terms of a workflow, you want to identify patients. You've got to know the difference between commercial versus Medicare. You typically have to order the device and then utilize the company for training options. So Medicare requirements, as they stand, it's patients taking at least 3 dosages of insulin and that they're making frequent adjustments to insulin based on the CGM. And I have a template. Whenever we're going to choose a device, it's Libre template, boom. You know, I made sure I made all those things correct, but it's just verbiage. And then now a lot of them are just doing 1 shot a day of insulin. So that's new. Not all the DME companies are accepting that, but it's changing as we speak due to COVID regulations. Chart notes, this is very important. They want the chart notes from the last 6 months, most of the companies. The encounter date must be prior to ordering. So a patient can't call me and say, hey, I want a Dexcom. And we haven't seen them and describe that. So we have to get them in for that. That's Medicare. 6 months of notes. Yeah. HPI, you've got to have the diagnosis of diabetes, of course. The patient needs to be testing their blood sugars. That's another area due to COVID that they're not as strict on. Oh, this patient must tell 4 times a day. I used to have to beg patients to test their sugars 4 times a day so I could get them a device. That is really eased up with the new regulations. So just be aware, it is fluctuating now with the documentation. And whatever DME company you choose, again, if it's at the pharmacy, now Dexcom's at the pharmacy as well in a lot of places. And that's saving patients a lot of money if we can send it direct to a pharmacy as well. Because a lot of times it's just, but you need to say that they're like testing or scanning. Medicare requirements continued. The med list has to have the insulin in it, their insulin regimen, and that they're making frequent adjustments. If patients on an insulin pump, we do a lot of insulin pumps, and Out of the devices that we looked at today, the Guardian connects with the Medtronic 670 or 70G. The Dexcom now connects with the Tandem T-Slim X2 pump, and it now connects to the Omnipod. This is relatively new. Really excited about this. So now we have a hybrid closed loop disposable device. So this is huge. You have to prescribe an intro kit for this, which gives them the controller or PDM. But if they're on an Android right now, it will also work on their phone. We're expecting iPhone soon. Huge jump in technology. I've had a lot of patients who've wanted the Omnipod, but I always like to encourage a hybrid closed loop system for reduction of hypoglycemia if they're on a pump. So now we're going. I can't tell you how many I've prescribed already. And just find a good company that that you want to work with in terms of supplies. Let's see. So we've talked about the chart notes, and it has to be signed, of course. And oftentimes I ask, has the patient had diabetes education? So that can be part of that as well. That's part of the system. Many of the companies for DME are using an app called Parachute. So we're starting to lighten up on our paperwork where they send us a request, we can do it online and send it back. We do, in a case of a pump, need to still send the chart notes, but not so much. That's kind of lightening up too. And then I do a template. So this is an exact copy off my electronic health record. Patient has diabetes, mellitus, and is managed with insulin regimen, plus or minus 3 injections, or they're on a pump. Patient requires a therapeutic CGM and is willing to use it for necessary frequent adjustments of insulin therapy. So you make up that sentence that follows the guidelines, and as the guidelines change, we got it covered. TRICARE is now covering that as well. If you have any military patients, that's been interesting because they have a prior auth process that was hardest one I've ever done, but we're getting better. They're figuring out their process. I've mentioned the commercial insurance. When you order a Dexcom, you order typically, if they don't need the receiver, you don't have to order it. You order the sensor device for a 3-month supply every 10 days on the Dexcom. It would be 9 devices. The transmitter would just be 1 for every 90 days. So I just you got to know what you're ordering and how many parts you need for each one. And the receiver is not required unless they're Medicare eligible. For the Libre 14-day, the Libre 2, and now the Libre 3. Libre 3 is still available only through durable medical equipment at this time. They just did this soft launch, and the device is so wow, it's going to go crazy once they allow it in the pharmacies. So you write for a reader if the patient needs a reader, and then you would just write for the sensor kit. So I would write Libre Sensor 2 kits. They would do 2 kits for every month or 6 for 90 days. That can go to a commercial pharmacy if they have commercial insurance, or that can go to a durable medical equipment if they are Medicare eligible. That's for the 14, the 2, and then the 3 would be just through the DME at this time. And most companies have free training, online, YouTube videos, telephone support, and having somebody in your setting that is a champion for this and knows how to do this and can train the patients. We use our medical assistants. If I don't have time to put on a Dexcom or help the patient through the phone stuff, I've trained my medical assistant with doing that as well. It doesn't have to be me or my nurse to do that. So that's helped us do that. Question? So the question is, what is more accurate? Well, that's a little tough question to answer because the glucometers that we use, what's the variability on that? What is it? -5, -10, up or down. And so you're comparing this to the sensors, which if the glucometer is not that accurate, they're accurate, but it can still have variability. So we look at the MARDs on the sensors, and most of them are in the range now of 9% or so, which is very accurate. Really, we've come a long way with the devices. So I hope that answers the online question. And then what's so important if you do start a device is that you're looking at the information and helping the patients. I have seen A1Cs drop 2 or 3% just because I put a sensor on their arm and now they can see what's happening in their lives with their sugars. I didn't change any other medicines. The only thing I did was put this little piece of technology on them, whether I did the Dexcom, whether I did a Libre, whether I did the Eversense, whether I did a Guardian Connect, whatever the technology is, it is changing lives. And the hypoglycemia is huge. I mentioned hypoglycemia several times. I just wanted to make you aware. Does anybody know what these two devices are? No, okay. So this is Baqsimi. This is the nasal glucagon now. That's a Lilly product. I just like to bring other things if you haven't seen it. This goes in the nose. It's a powder formulation, and when there's severe low, somebody else would put this in the nostrum and just hit it like that. Done. Glucagon works just like an injection. There's two forms of this on the market. This one is the Gvoke, and then there's Zegalogue as well. These are ready to go glucagon, and you literally take the cap off, and the person who is helping the individual will put it, wait for the click. They've just done the glucagon. So the red kits are, that's a lot of work for somebody who's not trained. This is easy to teach. So I like to bring in the new technology. So this was called Gvoke, and the other one's called Zegalogue. These are room temperature, FDA approved glucagon kits, and they both have a pediatric and an adult dosing. Just wanted to share that with you. So at the patient follow-up visit, you want to make sure that you are looking at the patient's device, documenting your medical record, finding out where the issues are. The first thing I look for in a download is hypoglycemia. We want that to be under 2 or 1%. You're going to have a little bit of hypoglycemia, but if we can reduce that, that's really the biggest thing that we're trying to help with. And to download a device, you download the device, you document it and review it in the patient record. You bill the 95249 if you train the patient on the device, and then you bill the 95251 after the provider has reviewed the data. And I think under the guidelines of Medicare, it has to be NPPA or MD for the billing out of the 95251. It's around $50 an average. And I've certainly seen that in my own billing. And there's great resources. So I would highly recommend the Practical CGM from the American Diabetes Association, and then ADCES has, have you seen the Dana site, the Dana Tech? They have trainings on there, live courses, webinars for the device trainings. And so that's really great tools for you, great references for you. And I am right at 10:59 for our time. You guys were so awesome. This is so great for questions. And this was my dream, to have this kind of communication. Yes, sir. So your question is DOT medical. I usually bring this up. I am a certified DOT medical examiner. I've been doing it for diabetes since they started the exam process. So I've been doing it for about 6-7 years or so. I started to help my persons with diabetes who were on insulin, if they were safe, to maintain their gainful employment. And there is a diabetes assessment form that the provider that prescribes the insulin completes. It's right on the DOT website. It is 3 or 4 pages. 2 things that have to be on that in order to pass the person to go to the next level to get the medical exam. They have to have a dilated eye exam on their chart, and they have to have a 90 days of glucose data. So and it has to be date and timed. It cannot be a handwritten log. That is per regulation. So your question that, yes, are these going to change things? Absolutely. Because this will help people. It'll alert, it'll alarm if they're going low. That's the biggest fear when you're driving. So the patient cannot have any severe hypoglycemia for driving. Are you aware of this diabetes assessment form? We do quite a bit of them. And then I can do that form as a person who's prescribing the insulin. And then I can also be the CDL medical examiner. The diabetes assessment form, if they're on insulin only, this is only up patients on insulin, has to be completed first. And then the patient has 45 days to go to a CDL medical examiner and get the regular physical exam for that. But they can be signed off for 1 year. Diabetes on insulin, they can drive. This rule changed about 3-4 years ago, and I've been singing it to the rooftops because so many people still think, oh, no, I can't be on insulin. I won't be able to drive. I say, yes, you can. Here's how we're going to do it safely. And I can do both things for the patient. So I really like giving that opportunity for the patient to, used to be, there were state forms, there was this is federal. This is across the nation. This diabetes assessment form, they can drive throughout the nation as long as they're safe and they don't have any severe complications, meaning like severe eye damage, no severe neuropathy, anything that might enhance their sensations while they're driving. So, but it's a great question. Thank you for bringing that up. All right, I'll stop here and I'll stay because we went to the minute. Thank you all so much for your input and appreciate y'all.
Thank you, Ms. Arnold. And on behalf of USET, we just have a token of our appreciation.